What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where me and my good friend Brian over there talk about comic books that have been adapted into movies and streaming shows. Brian, I don't think we're wearing the same T-shirt today, right?
We are definitely not. So no stripping from me.
Yes. It's no possible way you could be wearing the same shirt as me. I'm actually wearing a shirt from one of my schools, and I turned it inside out just so that people couldn't be like,
Wait.
So, speaking of stripping, there's a little bit of male stripping in this episode of Umbrella Academy, huh?
Yes. It's been about 2 years since the last season, something like that.
Yes. And on the show, I think it's like 5 years, right?
6 years of time have passed since the season 3 finale. This is the final season of Umbrella Academy here, and although the show is previously has really deviated from the comics a lot. I think the first season was maybe the closest, but I think that was honestly probably the weakest season.
Yeah.
And I think when they started kind of diverging, doing their own thing, and me getting over not being about like the comic is, I started to really enjoy the show. And yeah, so I didn't remember a damn thing from that season 3 finale. So I watched that little recap there, and I'm like, I remember they're having their power sucked out, but I don't remember them calling it Marigold.
Yeah, I didn't remember that either. Yeah,
I can't exactly remember what oh my god, I forgot Allison did either. Yeah. I know she created the team, but what did she do? Can't remember. It's terrible. I just remember they did something. They went through some portal, and then they kind of went their separate ways.
Yeah, they ended up in some other reality. It's funny that you mentioned the recap, right? Because I had the exact same experience. I'm like, oh shit, I don't really remember any of the details of like the last season or previous seasons, like where I could comprehensively say, okay, this happened, this should probably happen next. And so I'm like, this recap's really going to help. Then I watched the recap and I'm like more confused.
Yeah, and especially too, I couldn't even go. I mean, I wasn't going to go rewatch the whole show. I probably should at least watch the finale over again, maybe.
Yeah.
Like we said before, it's deviated so much from the comic, and there has not been a comic since the Hotel Oblivion. Maybe there was like a side story or a one-off that was in the past, but nothing has progressed as far as I remember since the end of the Hotel Oblivion arc in the comic, in which the last page you see the Sparrow Academy for the first time.
Right.
So we've had an entire season with the Sparrow Academy, and we have seen one panel of them in the comic.
Yeah, it's very similar to Game of Thrones and George R. R. Martin, right? And the show, the Song of Ice and Fire books, where it's like, he kind of stopped at one point, but the story continued. And in the case of the Umbrella Academy, they just did their own thing. They've been doing their own thing, like you said, since season 2. I mean, season 2 kind of, has that Dallas story arc a little bit in it.
Yes, it does revolve around Dallas, and it does revolve around the Kennedy assassination. But that's kind of like it.
Yeah.
Other than that, a lot of things changed, I think. I don't even think not even everyone went back in the past in that, as far as I remember.
I'm trying to think.
It doesn't matter. Well, I mean, in the comic anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yes, to go back to your initial question and point, yes, there is some male stripping in this by Luther, who strips as Space Boy.
Yes.
Sans powers, so he doesn't have the big gorilla arms or anything like that. So
right. Well, so okay. With this show, right? It's like so different from the comic. You are really good about pointing out, news about upcoming comic stuff or like rumors that you might have heard. Have you heard anything about Gerard Way and Gabriel Ba making a new book?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Okay. So like that story might not like ever continue.
Very possible.
I wonder what Gerard Way is doing right now, because I actually listen to a lot of My Chemical Romance, But
Well, I thought they were going to be putting out an album because they did that whole tour and they had that new song. But
okay.
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that either. So
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, the comic is really trippy. I'm kind of wondering how people would stumble across this video. Like either they're like big Umbrella Academy show fans, maybe they like the comic and the show, maybe they've watched our previous reviews of the past seasons. I don't know, but needless to say, I didn't remember a lot of details. Then we watched this episode. It started to kind of trigger some things in my memory, but I have no idea what the hell they're going to do this season.
well, yeah, it seems like they're again leaning into the end of the world. That's the kind of theme of the show. Well, in the book too. The world's always ending, and these kind of misfit superheroes have to save it.
Okay.
It seems to be so. Early on in the episode, you were introduced to some new characters. Oh my God, what are their names? Their names are both Gene, and they're played by Nick Offerman and Megan Mullally.
Yes, yes,
and yes. I don't. They have the same last name. I don't remember what it is, but they seem to be leaders of some kind of cult that realizes something has happened to reality, and trying to acquire items that previously existed in one of these other realities. The big item they're looking at are two videos that have I can't remember the name of them. It was like a movie, like a sequel movie, and then one of them has some random actress, and the other has Allison Hargreaves on the cover.
Right.
So, I don't know how that exactly proves it's from a different reality, other than where somebody just fucking printed that. I mean, like anybody can do shit like that.
Yeah, isn't it like famous for like Super Bowl shirts and like like World Series shirts where like they print out shirts of the winner, but then if the other team wins, they just discard all the shirts that have the wrong team.
Yeah, so they can't mass produce that shit fast enough after a win, so they have to have it ready. So when the Super Bowl comes, they print out winning shirts for both, and the loser stuff usually gets shipped off somewhere to some third world country or something like that. No one's gonna buy it.
But you know what? Like, I get it. It's all kind of matrixy. It's the idea of like, hey, we know that there's something wrong with reality. What is it? And so they have this keeper group, this group of like, people that are into conspiracy theories, and they think that there's something wrong with reality. And I guess they're trying to bring reality back using something called the cleanse, right?
Yes. Which is an end of the world kind of scenario. I just wish that there was some kind of like device or explanation of how they can tell these things are from another reality, and it's not fabrication. I wish there was like, oh, we have this thing that senses these particles, or they do some like DC frequency bullshit,
Yeah. Oh, the dark matter. There's always dark matter for this kind of
shit. Yeah. This is a dark matter VHS copy. That's what I want.
Yes. The dark matter count is so high. But what do you call it? I was going to say, though, that there's still a chance that they might reveal something like that. We should probably tell everyone that we're covering each of these episodes one at a time. When things get released on Netflix, they come out in one big dump. But Brian and I like to do things one at a time. So we're just covering episode 1 right now.
Yeah, we are anti-binge on Comic Books Transformed.
Yes. And so there's probably people that have watched the whole thing and they're like, you dumbasses, we know exactly what's happening. But we dumbasses like to sit and savor our weird, quirky comic book shows.
Yeah. But millennials have our weekly shows.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So let's talk about the people behind the scenes. I don't know if I ever mentioned this in previous videos, but the guy that created the show, he adapted the comic into the show. His name's Steve Blackman, and he worked on a whole bunch of different shows. One of the most notable ones for me is Fargo, because I love that show so much. He wrote like maybe 2 episodes of it. He worked on Legion, which I bet will get you excited. And then he also did that show Altered Carbon too. Did you ever watch that one?
I watched. I didn't finish the first season, but I did start it. It was good. I don't remember why I didn't finish it.
Yeah. So another Netflix show, another like genre Netflix show. Another person working on the show is Jeremy Slater, who it sounds like a guy that worked on Supernatural, but it didn't say that in his wiki. It said that he wrote the live action Death Note movie, which was kind of notorious. He was a co-writer on Godzilla vs. Kong. He also worked on the Exorcist TV show, which me and Danny covered on the Laser Cast, which is a really great show. and then he also wrote on Moon Knight as well.
Interesting. Okay.
He might have even been the showrunner for Moon Knight. So, obviously both of these people have a lot of work in genre TV.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that that's why the show is so quirky and fun and different. But I can't say that a lot of stuff happened in this first episode. What do you think?
No, not much happened. I honestly didn't know what we're really going to talk about in this because really we get that title card of a 6-year time jump, and essentially the family is sort of estranged in a way, but there was a kind of a gathering for Diego and Lila's child for their 6th birthday, and then you get a little bit of a glimpse of what everybody was doing in that time, and then Victor reluctantly shows up at this party at the last minute, at the not really wanting to go, and but get kidnapped in the process.
Yes,
by David Cross.
David Cross. That was another. I mean, I think I remembered hearing about Megan Mullally and Nick Offerman, but I didn't know David Cross was going to be in this.
I didn't either. And man, there's something up with him.
Yeah,
They want you to think that he's just somebody whose daughter was kidnapped and he needs their help, but there's no way that's going to be that simple, and I really hope it isn't.
Yeah, I don't think David Cross is capable of playing like a genuinely innocent kind of person. I don't think he could play like sort of a naive, innocent person. It's like there's something about his manner where it's like, no, there's something going on there. He's like too clever. He's secretly a bastard.
Yeah. And he's got those jean shorts on.
Yes. A little Arrested Development action going on there. Yeah. So I mean, like, there's more to that. But that's really the only sort of like exciting thing that happens. This episode is really for people that love these particular characters and are just happy to see the family again. Like, oh, there's Luther. Oh, there's, Klaus, just excited to be back with these characters. I think that's what episode 1 is all about.
Yeah, that's the same thing here for me. That's what it felt like. I'm as excited to revisit these characters and see what they're doing. And I hope we have a satisfying conclusion in this very short season.
Right. Yeah.
One of the things I did read about this is that the cast didn't know how it was going to end until like the last 2 days of filming. The showrunners kept it the scripts like close, and they implied that the reason why the show is where it is and it has this is that it did have significant popularity, but it was definitely disrupted by COVID and all that time there. But luckily they were big enough at the time that they allowed them to wrap it up in a shorter fashion, I suppose. So I guess at the very least we should be thankful for that rather than having another fucking bullshit cliffhanger Netflix garbage.
Yeah, fuck that. Right. Well, let's see if we can jog our memories together as two middle-aged men trying to remember like what happened. I was thinking we could go through the seasons very, very quickly. Like season 1 is very similar to the comic where Vanya, they're not Victor yet. They are like the outcast member of the family. They actually do have a power, even though every other member of the family has a superpower. Vanya,
they don't have a power initially.
Well, like, didn't they always have a power?
Well, okay, so the family had a power, but Vanya was kind of like the outcast of the family because her power never activated, but she ultimately was, I guess, the most powerful in a way, and that power comes out in this whole in this like theater, and this she creates this like world-ending ball.
Right. And so the world's going to end, and to save it, they use Five's time travel power, and that like discards them into different parts of the 1960s, right?
Something like that. And then Ghost Ben does something too there. I don't remember.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the whole thing. And if you guys are watching, if you're big Umbrella Academy fans, just let us know in the comments, like fill in those gaps for us old men that are trying to remember these comic book shows that we're covering. We're taking the time
Yeah,
to cover.
I just do remember that season was the one that followed the comics the closest, I would say.
Yeah.
And then here, season 2 in the 60s, it diverges a bit. So the whole big thing was about stopping the Kennedy assassination.
There was something. Well, okay, so like there's this like group that's like the TVA. And you know, I hate using a reference like that because that's what everyone's gonna get. They're gonna get the Marvel reference. But this stuff predates that. I mean, Marvel had the TVA in like the 70s or maybe the 80s or whatever. But the idea of like an organization trying to like prevent glitches in time, that was happening in this show way before we got like the TVA shit and all that Kang shit in the MCU.
Yeah. And this is the organization that Five worked for. And the thing that always threw me off too was that this is the season that this is the story arc that Hazel and Cha-Cha should have been in, but they had them in. They shoehorned them into season 1.
Right. Yeah, that would have been the next one. That's right. And like things that happen with the characters, it's definitely different from the comics. There was that sort of romantic tension between Luther and Allison in like the first 2 seasons. You know, especially with that idea of like, well, they're siblings, even though they're from these random pregnancies for all these random scattered women throughout the world. There's technically like brother and sister, and so there's that weird kind of tension between them. I mean, Five is always kind of like on a mission. And I think that in the comics, he also does have that experience that he has in the show where he's like in a post-apocalyptic setting for like decades. And then he comes back in time, right?
Yeah, he time travels back further than I guess he normally would. And he comes back in a younger version of his body. Yeah.
Yeah. And stuff with Klaus, it kind of varies from the comic a lot. Like he can like talk with spirits or like get spirits come into his body and stuff in the comics, and it isn't just this focus on his dead brother as much as we get in the show, you know.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and he does start a cult in both as well.
Okay, all right.
And,
well, so that go ahead.
And I would definitely say the show focuses a lot. Klaus was one of the characters that people were very fond of.
Yeah.
I don't think he had as much prominence in the comic as he does in the show.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of the characters look like drastically different from their comic book counterparts. Like it's often that thing of like race bending where like almost all the members of the comic book family are white, but they have a diverse cast for this show.
Is it really that? I mean, it's just really Allison is not white, I think, isn't it? I guess
don't
Diego.
know. Yeah, Diego, and I feel like I don't know what kind of ethnicity Klaus is, but he looks kind of exotic, you know?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. He might just be like this Irish guy. I remember I saw him in something.
He's British, isn't he?
Oh, probably. I saw him in. Yeah, right. I saw him in something recently, and I was like, "Wait, who the fuck is that?" He didn't have his like goatee or his curly hair. I was like, "Who was that?" And then I realized it was that actor. But you know, there's stuff in the second season that's totally different from the comic too, and then we get them going to this alternate timeline in the third season, and we have the Hotel Oblivion, which is where they're based in the third season. But the Hotel Oblivion in the comic is like a prison for supervillains that the Umbrella Academy caught.
That's correct. Yeah, there's a whole big subplot there with one of their one of their villains trying to escape, and that's one thing that they don't really do in the show. Like they don't really have villains, I guess.
Right.
It's all, well, I mean, like individual comic booky villains. Like they have things that they're fighting against, obviously, but they didn't really show that comic kind of style villain in the show.
Right. And you know, it's like two different worlds. The comic is fun, but the show's a lot of fun. And one of the things the show does really well is it incorporates music into its like little action sequences. There's this one sequence, I believe, in season 2 where they play like Kiss's "I Was Made for Loving You," and that's like one of my favorite things I've ever seen. It's like that little montage while they're fighting to that song.
Man, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, I try to find it on YouTube sometimes, and I just can't. It's really good.
I remember I think you were alone now in the first season.
They do that. Yeah.
I thought that was always that visual of that sequence always stuck out in my mind. And what's the one in the third season then?
Some kind of weird dream sequence where they're all dancing in unison.
Yeah, I can't remember what song it was though. But yeah, but they always have some big sequence there, and I don't think we've seen that yet here. So
yeah. So like by the third season, they're in the Hotel Oblivion, but the Hotel Oblivion is like this sort of like alien device that deals with time and timelines, and they have to like activate it, each one with their own powers. So it makes it like their powers are very dependent on, like, there's a purpose behind everything. Whereas in the comic, it's more like they're just kind of always reacting to stuff. In this, it's like, oh, they had this purpose to activate this machine that Hargreaves built.
Yeah, and the world starts off fine, but it slowly starts to deteriorate in season 3, and then they're eventually just left with this little plot of land, where the hotel is, and then they do. This is where the Allison works with Reginald Hargreaves and does something, and then he sucks all their powers out. That's all we old white men can remember.
Right. So there's this thing called the Kugel Blitz, though. Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember that word now, but I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Yeah, it was like this like pulse that would just like kind of shoot out and destroy things, And
I think that killed quite a number of the Sparrow Academy.
Yeah, it killed up a whole bunch of those characters, and they were pretty interesting too. Like they had all different powers too, and they were interesting characters. And at one point, Luther had a girlfriend. I think they might have even got married.
Yeah, no, they got married as the world was about to end. And then after this whole thing, she wasn't there, and she gets a name drop at least here in this first episode here. But I'm gonna assume that she's not going to be in the season.
Yeah, her name was Sloane, right?
Sloane, yes.
Yeah,
she was the only. She was the Sparrow Academy member that survived the longest, other than Ben, because Ben is still there, obviously.
Yeah. So then that brings us up to season 4. That was our kind of Swiss cheese hole-filled recap of the 3 seasons so far. But that brings us up to this first episode, which is entitled The Unbearable Tragedy of Getting What You Want. And I love that title because the actors are still younger than us, but they're like probably in their early 30s, I'd say. Maybe even some of them are in their late 20s. But they're younger than us, but they're in this sort of like, 9 to 5 kind of generic life. And there's quite a few quotes in this episode that remind me of just my own life, especially Diego and his girlfriend. I don't think they're married, but like his girlfriend, they have like, I think 2 kids, right?
Yeah, they have 2 kids, yeah.
Because he has that one fucking line where he's like, my wife told me that you couldn't get pregnant while you're breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And
but it just,
yeah, and it just kind of, there's a couple of lines about raising children and stuff. And like at one point, so what's the girlfriend's name then? That was Lila. Okay. So Lila goes out and she sees Allison in the car, and Allison's sucking on a vape. And she sits in the car and sucks on a vape. And there's probably something in it because she kind of acts as if it's like got weed or something in it.
Yeah.
And they talk about being parents and how difficult it is. And I was like, shit, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
But with that being said, did you get anything more out of it than what I was just talking about?
No, this is a very set up episode here. I mean, I think this is one of those things when when streaming shows do drop episodes on a weekly basis, a lot of the times they'll front load it a little bit, give you 1 or 2 because it's so set-up-y. They want to leave you with wanting more. And I guess we sort of got that because we do see Ben spiking their drinks or making them drink the marigold stuff, which I assume is going to give them their powers back the next episode. So that was really, there were some little crumbs there, but I feel like that had this been a weekly show, they might have dropped 2 at once to maybe get a little more, and we'll find that out shortly as we watch it, I suppose. But then again, it's hard to do a weekly show where you drop when it's only 6 episodes, where you drop 2 at the top.
Yeah.
It's just not a lot of time, so it almost makes sense to put the binge watch, which I still don't agree with, but it's probably why.
Yeah, and that's what we'll do. We'll just keep covering the show until something else comes up. And so if you're really into Umbrella Academy, then stick with us, comment, let us know. I was going to ask you though, Brian, Ben, very like obviously, like anyone that's observant could see him just smuggle the marigold into his pocket. And he says he's going to go to the bathroom. He walks off. A waiter comes out with a bunch of shot glasses. Are you under the impression that he poured that shit into each of the shot glasses?
No, he told the waiter to give me some glasses and pour the shit in it. The waiter's in on it. The waiter was in on it. There's no way he just snuck it into those shot glasses. But at the same time, though, that when he's drinking it at the end, it's like clearly fucking glowing. And then I think they would have noticed that when they were drinking it.
Right. Okay. So that's what I'm saying is it's ambiguous because, like, to me, he goes and takes a shot after, like, it's the very last thing in the episode is he takes a shot himself and he's like, "See you soon, motherfuckers," or something like that. And I was like, wait a minute. Did they not drink it? I was like,
they did. They 100% did because that bottle was full beforehand, and it was half full afterwards. I think he just took an extra shot to drive home the point that what he did.
Okay.
So it doesn't make sense. Again, like there's no way that they didn't notice it.
Yeah.
Or maybe they mixed it with alcohol. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. The point is generally there that he made them drink the thing that's going to give them their powers back because he thinks that's going to make something better.
Right. And I mean, we're nitpicking at this point, but like for all of them to be oblivious with that shit in their drink, like Klaus is a germaphobe at this point, like just hyper aware of everything going on. You'd think that he would at least look in his drink and be like, "What's this?"
Yeah. The other thing too is, he states he's sober, but like, sake doesn't count.
Oh yeah. So I was going to ask you too, man, we're really stretching this out, but like, who's your favorite character out of all the family members? And you can't say multiple. You got to pick one.
Oh man, that's tough. This is probably more based from the comic, but I'm going to say Luther.
Yeah. Well, the actor that plays him is very charming because he's got this sort of naive quality.
He's kind of like a big doofus.
Right.
Which is not exactly the comic.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I do like the actor. I do like the character. And I was pulling for Luther and Sloan at the end of last season. I remember that.
Yeah. No, I love Luther too. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to say that there's 3, but if I was going to have a 3, it seems weird because it's all the guys. I'm like, I like the female characters too. Well, I mean, it's not all the guys because Victor is a guy too. But like, I like Diego, I like Luther, and I like Klaus. But I would say that Klaus is my favorite. So that's cliche, but Klaus is my favorite.
Well, Klaus is most people's favorite. So
yeah. So I mean, it's a good show. It's fun. We'll cover every week. Was there anything else you wanted to say about this episode in particular?
No, I think that's it. I'm excited for more.
He's tapped out. All right, cool. Well, it's been fun. We're going to cover this. We're going to cover other comic book releases that are coming up. And
Terminator.
Who?
The Terminator anime coming at the end of the month.
Terminator anime. And then also, I mentioned the Lastercast before. Next week, we're going to watch Alien Romulus. And so if you want to catch Alien Romulus and see a review, you can go over to the Lastercast. I'm going to bring Brian over there if he's down. You down?
Oh, yeah.
All right, nice. We're always talking about alien stuff. Yeah, but guys, thanks so much for watching. We really appreciate the views, and we will see you guys